Hey everybody, my name is Michelle and in this video I'm going to rank all the Shadowhunter books that are currently published. So all the books that are written by Cassandra Clare and in some cases some other authors that do take place in the Shadowhunter universe. So that includes 6 books within the Mortal Instruments series, 3 books for the Infernal Devices series, 3 books for the Dark Artifices series, 3 bind-ups of short stories that all take place in the Shadowhunter universe, and also the Red Scrolls of Magic written by Cassandra Clare and Wesley Chu, that is a mythical within the Mortal Instruments series. So I really love the Shadowhunter world. I think it's so entertaining and so much fun to read, or in some cases also very emotional. What I do like is the very big cast of characters and all the events and all the things and how it portrays so many things within this world of shadow hunting and demon hunting. And I thought it would be fun to do one big Shadowhunter book ranking with all the books together. So not rankings within the series, but all the books mixed together from my least favorite until my favorite. So we have 16 books. So that will go from number 16 till number 1. And then for all the books I'm going to give a short spoiler-free review. So no spoilers within this video. Even if you have not read any Shadowhunter book yet, you're completely safe. And then this video might be interesting for you to see if you're going to like the Shadowhunter books and, you know, short reviews for all of them. That's basically what I'm going to do today. Also with this ranking, please bear in mind that with some cases it's a very close call when I had to decide which book was going to go one place higher than the other. So it's not like I hate any of these books. But you know, within a ranking you have to make choices and some of those choices were very hard. But yeah, if a book is lower on the list, that really does not mean that I don't like it. It's just a lesser favorite of mine. Okay, I think that's enough of an intro for now. Let me get started and then I'm going to give you a ranking of all the Shadowhunter books. I'm going to start with my least favorite book and then work my way up to my favorite book. And on number 16 I have the Bane Chronicles by Cassandra Clare, Sarah Rees Brennan and Maureen Johnson. Also in advance, these books are usually very reflective, so you can probably see my ring light every once in a while. I'm going to try to hold it like this. The Bane Chronicles is a collection of short stories all about Magnus Bane. There are stories from his past, from his present, with other characters that you might know from the series. But the thing is, most of these stories are just Magnus Bane being Magnus Bane. And I definitely like Magnus Bane, but he's not like my all-time favorite character of the series. These short stories with him as the main character overall were a bit boring to me, mostly because none of these stories actually have a bigger meaning within the series. The other bind-ups of short stories are actually quite important for other series because they provide information that is very relevant to things that happen in the main series. But with the Bane Chronicles, it's just a collection of short stories about Magnus Bane being cute and himself. If you're not the biggest fan of Mac Bane like I am, again, I still enjoy reading about him, but not as the main character of all these short stories, then yeah, this book just isn't the one for you. For me, this was definitely the most boring Shadowhunter related book. I just wasn't all that interested in his adventures. You know, I know what Magnus Bane is like and I didn't really need these stories, but I can definitely understand because Magnus Bane is such a fan favorite that a lot of people really enjoy this bind-up, but for me it's just my least favorite Shadowhunter book. On number 15 I have City of Ashes, which is the second book in the Mortal Instruments series. This is one that would be low on a lot of people's Shadowhunter ranking lists, I believe, and for me it's mostly low because this book is so early on in the Shadowhunter world. The writing style and just the writing in general isn't all that amazing yet. It's okay, but not that engaging as some of the other books are. And also the characters aren't completely developed yet. They are very much more one-dimensional than how they will become in later books, like later in the series. So that's why City of Ashes is just a bit more meh compared to some of the other books. And also the thing with City of Ashes is that there are some plot points that are very uncomfortable to read about. And if you've read the book, then you probably know what I'm talking about, but it was very not nice to read about those things. You feel it was very uncomfortable and just awkward to read about those things. Yeah, I didn't really like it. That's also why this is my least favorite book to reread, because I just don't like that storyline. Even though I know how it's going to turn out, it's just not... I don't like it all that much. And I feel like a lot of people will agree with that because I've heard that complaint multiple times. But yeah, the City of Ashes, again, it is enjoyable, but I mostly like it because of its place in the series and not as a book itself. It's just not the best that is out there. Then on number 14 I have City of Bones by Cassandra Clare, which is the first book in the Mortal Instruments series and the first book in the Shadowhunter world in general. With this one I have the same complaints as with City of Ashes, and that's mostly that the writing isn't all that great yet and the characters aren't what they are going to be. They're just a bit more, well, not that interesting. They are interesting, but just a lot less interesting than they will become later on. So the same complaints as with City of Ashes, but in this case it doesn't have that uncomfortable storyline that I mentioned before. And also this is the book that started it all, so it will always be a bit higher up on the ranking. Yeah, I do really like how this book starts the world and starts the story, but again, as a book itself, it's not the best within the series. On number 13 I have the Red Scrolls of Magic by Cassandra Clare and Wesley Chu. As I mentioned before, this is a mid-call and it takes place in between City of Glass and City of Fallen Angels in the original Mortal Instruments series. And this book follows Magnus Bane and Alec Lightwood as the main characters. With this one, the thing is, the writing is so much better in this one because as of right now it's her latest release. The latest release within the Shadowhunter world. And also the characters are so much better than they are as I mentioned before in the first two books. The thing that I dislike the most about this book is, first of all, again, it's Magnus Bane and Alec in this case as the main characters, and they are cute, they are definitely fun to read about, but not my favorite characters of all time, of like the entire Shadowhunter world. So I'm just never as invested in stories about them than I am with like other characters. I just like them more when they are part of a huge cast of characters than on their own in their own book, if that makes sense. Again, I know it's not a very popular opinion. I do like them, I just don't desperately love them or anything. And then my second complaint is that this book just does not fit chronologically within the series. Like, it just doesn't make sense. First of all, the events, but mostly, as I mentioned before, the writing and the characters, because they are so much better than they are at this point within the original series. So I find it very hard to place it in between those, and yeah, it doesn't really fit in my opinion. Also, it's a mid-call, so you know how it's going to end up. You know what's going to happen next if you've read the entire Mortal Instruments series. And yeah, that makes it a little bit less interesting to read about because there's only so much that can happen in a mid-call. Apart from that, it's definitely a fun adventure to read about, just not my favorite. Again, I don't dislike it, but I also don't love it. On number 12 I have City of Fallen Angels, the fourth book in the Mortal Instruments series. This one is relatively low on the list because City of Fallen Angels feels the most like a filler book, where usually none of the Shadowhunter books really feel like a filler book. But this one is the fourth book, and originally the Mortal Instruments was supposed to be a trilogy, but this one continued the series, and this book has a lot to set up for the next story. It is also one of the shortest Shadowhunter books within the whole universe. I don't have anything that I dislike about it though. It's just that it feels a bit like a filler book, and also there's nothing that particularly stands out about it. It's not like, oh, this is the book where this happened. It's just one that sets up the next books, and I do appreciate it for that because the next two books in the series I really love. But this one, it's enjoyable and it's definitely very good. The writing and the characters are so much better at this point. But as I mentioned before, nothing in this one stands out on its own in my opinion. So that's why it's a bit lower on the list. Now we've already reached the point where I don't have like a lot of complaints about all of these books. So again, it was very hard to rank them, so don't judge me too harshly. Yeah, I just had to make a ranking and give these books a place. But then on number 11 I have The Ghosts of the Shadowhunter Market by Cassandra Clare, Sarah Rees Brennan, Maureen Johnson, Kelly Link and Robin Wasserman. This is again a collection of short stories, and these ones are surrounding the Shadowhunter Market, which is a place where Shadowhunters and Downworlders can come to, you know, do business and everything. Again, stories are set in the past and the present, yeah, they definitely, what I like about this one is that all these stories do have significance for other books and other book series within the world. Although I have to correct myself, I say all these stories, that's not true. There are also some stories that are mostly there for, you know, some extra fun time with our favorite characters, but a lot of the stories are important for different series. What I mostly like about this one is that there are a lot of stories that are setups for the new Lost Hour series, which is going to be published very soon. So it's about those characters and their backstories. I sense that it's going to be very important to know these things. But of course, at this point, I haven't read The Lost Hours yet. I haven't read Chain of Gold yet because it isn't published yet. And that's also why this one is lower on the list than Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy. Because at this point, I don't know the characters of The Lost Hours very well. So it sounds interesting, but I don't care about them as much as I did with the characters of the Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy. So very good, very interesting. I love these bind-ups of short stories. They provide so much insight and so much depth to the Shadowhunter world, and yeah, I really love this one and I can't wait to see how these stories are going to pay off in future series. On number 10 I have Lady Midnight, which is the first book in the Dark Artifices series. And this is a sequel series to the Mortal Instruments book series. This one takes place 6 years after the end of the Mortal Instruments. Lady Midnight is very well written, and also this one is so big because like the books are just getting bigger and bigger each new book that gets released. And again, it's hard to, it's just, I love Lady Midnight. It's a good one, but within the Dark Artifices series and also within just like some of the other books that still need to come, it's a bit less interesting, I think, than some of the others. And I've thought about it, and I think it's mostly because this one is so big and I think it's a bit too long for what actually happens. There's so much going on, but at the same time it feels like it should have been maybe a bit shorter. It's really hard to explain. It's just that this book didn't grab me as much as some of the other books did. It is still amazing, still one that I love very much, still a very enjoyable book, and again, I do really appreciate it because it's the beginning of a very good book series. It's just something about it that makes it a tiny bit less interesting for me than some of the other books. Again, it's hard to rank them and I have to make choices. On number 9 I have City of Glass, which is the third book in the Mortal Instruments series, and also actually it was supposed to be the ending. As I mentioned before, Cassandra Clare decided to continue with the Mortal Instruments series, but the thing is, the Mortal Instruments, even though it's 6 books, you can read it as 2 separate trilogies, because this one is definitely very much a conclusion and I loved it. I just love the conclusion books very much, and even though this one isn't technically the final book in a series, it still sort of is, because there's a lot that gets revolved or gets resolved. And this is also the book where the characters are finally becoming the characters that I know and love. Like, they are getting more developed, more interesting. I just really love that about it. And this book is the start of the Shadowhunter books that I love so much, whereas the first 2 were a bit lesser. This one definitely took up the quality of the series, and that's why I love it so much and why I appreciate it so much. So yeah, a very good final book in a series that actually isn't a final book in a series. The book on number 9 is Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy by Cassandra Clare, Sarah Rees Brennan, Maureen Johnson and Robin Wasserman, and this is the last one of the bind-ups of collections of short stories. And these ones all take place at the Shadowhunter Academy, and it takes place after the ending of the Mortal Instruments series. This one is by far my favorite of the collection of short stories, because all these stories are amazing. What I like most about it is, first of all these stories are very relevant to the other series, but also this is sort of like, well, not sort of, this also tells you about what happens to some of your favorite characters after the Mortal Instruments series. It answers so many questions. Even though it's different short stories, there's also one continuing story throughout, and that's what I liked about it so much. And this bind-up gave me so many emotions and so many feels, and it made me happy and it made me squeal, and it's just, I love it so much. It's like so much better than I had anticipated. And I think Ghosts of the Shadowhunter Market will give me the same feelings as well after I've read the entire book series that the characters appear in. And also I think because Ghosts of the Shadowhunter Market doesn't have a one continuing story and this one does, is why I prefer this one. It's amazing. Please don't skip it if you read the Shadowhunter Chronicles. It's very, very good. On number 7 I have Clockwork Angel, which is the first book in the Infernal Devices series. This one is a prequel to the Mortal Instruments. It takes place in Victorian England, and yeah, I've thought about it. I really, really love the Infernal Devices series, but I find it so hard with these ones to give a short review about them and explain why I love them so much. I think it's just overall, it's very interesting. I love the historical setting. I love the new characters. They're all so engaging. I also also find it very hard to rank in between these series, so yeah, I've just ranked them as the first one is good, the second one is even better, the third one is the best. So little spoiler on how this list is going to go from this point onwards, but overall it's so interesting. I do want to say the one thing that I like less about this series is the main villain. I think the main villain of this one isn't the best out of the entire series, but also I don't mind it that much because the danger is still interesting, and what I like most about it is the romantic relationships in this one, because like in this series, because it's just amazing. Like, I think the best romantic relationships of any series within the Shadowhunter world. So yeah, that's why I love Clockwork Angel, and yeah, just a really good one again. And then on number 6 I have Clockwork Prince again. Same reasons, I just like this one a tiny bit better than Clockwork Angel, but the difference really isn't that big. Again, it's amazing, and this one takes the story even further. I guess that's why I like it a little bit more, but again, whew, so hard to explain. It's just very, very interesting, and also as the before mentioned romantic relationships develop more in this one, so love it. On number 5, Queen of Air and Darkness, which is the third and final book in the Dark Artifices series. This one is also the biggest one out of them all, so please don't expect me to hold it up for too long. I really loved it. I really loved the conclusion of the series. It's just, there's so much happening. I love all the characters. I love the writing. It's just insane. I guess one tiny piece of complaint would be that it is very big and sometimes it's a bit overwhelming and a bit too much, and at some points I couldn't completely follow what was happening because so much is happening. I felt like this book could benefit from being trimmed down a little bit and keep some focus points, instead of like, this book is also setting up some things for a book series that is going to take place after it. I could have done without that, because that's just what makes it a bit less focused, but still an amazing ending to a series. I just wish it was a little bit shorter. On number 4, Clockwork Princess, which is just amazing. Like, such a good ending to a series again. This one is the biggest on the emotions part. Like, Clockwork Princess, you've probably heard a lot of people say it, but this one will make you feel a lot of emotions. It's just wow, so intense, so amazing. And again, I like this one more because of the characters and the relationships than the actual villain, because that one is just, you know, not that interesting, but it is very good, and I think one of the best endings of a series. But yeah, well, I don't know, it's just a very good one. On number 3 I have City of Heavenly Fire, which is again the ending of a series, in this case the Mortal Instruments. And again, it's just amazing, an amazing conclusion, all the characters, it's so satisfying, I love everything about it. And also intense, and I like the danger and the villain a lot more in this one. Also, why I've ranked this one a bit higher than Clockwork Princess is because this one is not only the ending to like the Mortal Instruments series, it's also sort of the ending to the first phase of the Shadowhunter novels. So that sounds like it's becoming like the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I think because this one is also, it has some conclusion for Clockwork Princess, or like the Infernal Devices series also. Yeah, that might sound a bit weird, but after this one I feel like it's sort of the end of an era, and then with Lady Midnight and then after that the Last Hour series, it's sort of like a new era, because now we're getting these sequel series for the original series. So that's also why I just like it. I feel like it really closes off this part of the Shadowhunter timeline, if that makes sense. It's just, it's hard to explain, but I really love it as a conclusion, and yeah, it's just again a very good book. That's with all of these, especially the top 3. On number 2 is City of Lost Souls by Cassandra Clare again, but this is the 5th book in the Mortal Instruments series. And this is my favorite of the entire Mortal Instruments book. This one just, it grabbed me straight away and I could not put it down, and I was so interested in basically everything that was happening. It was intense, it was amazing, I loved all the characters. I also loved that some characters who didn't get that much attention in earlier books get so much more attention in this one, and so much more development. Again, it's hard to explain, but this one just grabbed me more than some of the others in the series, and I really, really loved it, and it's so amazing and such an adventure. And again, as I mentioned before, I love the villain in this series, just I think the best, and it's so fun and also emotional to read about it, and I really, really love it. And then my number 1, my favorite Shadowhunter book, and if you have kept track then you know what it is, but it is Lord of Shadows, the second book in the Dark Artifices series. This book is just my favorite, and it's always going to be my favorite. I mean, I don't know that, but so far it has been my favorite. It is just wow. So intense, so amazing, like everything that I love about the Shadowhunter books, but even better. It's, again, I guess hard to explain. I feel like I keep saying this, but this one is just so intense, and it dialed everything up with like 100 or something. It's just wow. I could not put it down. This one gave me the most feelings, the strongest emotions, and I also think this one has the best ending of any Shadowhunter book ever. Not the most satisfying ending, but the best ending, because this ending left me wanting more, and it left me with all the feels, and it's just wow, so good. I love it. This one blew my mind, and that's saying something. And then we have reached the ending of this Shadowhunter book ranking. I really hope you liked it, and yeah, I guess it's different for everybody how you rank these books. There are a lot more than with the Harry Potter series, which I have ranked before in another video. But I did want to do something like this because Chain of Gold is going to be released so soon, and I'm so excited for it. And I think the Shadowhunter world is just very entertaining and just so much fun. I don't think it's like literary, they are not literary masterpieces or anything. It's just so entertaining and so enjoyable, and that's what I like about it. I just have the best time reading these books. But then this was it for this video, and I really hope you liked it, and if you did, maybe go subscribe or give it a thumbs up if you want to. As always, I would really appreciate that. You can leave a comment with your book ranking. You don't have to do all the books if you don't want to. Just rank the series you want to, because these are a lot. But if you want to share your ranking with me, then I would be happy to know what it is. And yeah, just leave a comment if you want to. And hopefully I will see you again very soon in my next video. Bye!